Okay, so I guess it's fair to say that when it comes to the cloud in particular, the hyperscalers, and without naming them, I think we know who they are, continue to dominate, and perhaps we can add in the Alibaba, the Chinese folks. But there seems to be a little bit of sort of pushback against. I don't know. It's just because people resent the fact they're huge, great companies. Well, have you detected that, and you got any thoughts as to why that might be the case?
Yeah, I think there are several reasons, but I think the main reason is that people are looking for like control, like self-determination. I don't know what the right word is, but they're looking for ways to own what they're doing. And the more difficult the big public clouds get, the more locked in you are. And that's obviously not really a nice feeling, even if it would be a European version of what we now see as an American public cloud, or a non-European version. It still is not nice. So people are looking for ways to have freedom of choice of where to do their work. I also think that the larger corporates are now being more and more putting all of their stuff on the public clouds, and often they have a mix of workloads on different public clouds, and that's just expensive. It's difficult. It's expensive, and it feels as unnecessary. So that's another reason. And then, of course, you have your sensitive data for healthcare, and a little bit of education, or other government services. And then I think the last reason, and I don't really know how strong that is, but I think there's quite a group of people who have a particular sentiment of running their stuff on their like regional outfit, so to say. And I don't yet know how big it is, but I think there's quite some people out there that want it closer to home, so geographically, but also economically.
Okay, so bearing in mind what you've said, there does seem therefore to be a bit of a trend towards looking at regional clouds, more local infrastructure, and you've outlined obviously some of the issues why people perhaps are moving or want to move away from the hyperscale, the big public clouds. But why do they want to embrace, apart from feeling good because it's closer to home? But are there any sort of practical reasons as to why they want to have a regional cloud as opposed to the big public version?
I don't like. There's no like, apart from that, I think you can do it cheaper. There's no other practical reason. So you can do your so if you believe in Kubernetes like we do, you can do your Kubernetes work on the public cloud within Europe. So you can do it in Ireland or for Frankfurt. So there's no, so functionally speaking, from a software engineering perspective, that would also work. So there's no like I was always stuck in my mind with like, it's not necessary we have the public cloud, it works, and you have your RDS and your like, you have wonderful services, we don't have to go there. But if you can, then the equation is a little bit different.
Okay, and you mentioned there Kubernetes, and it seems that these regional clouds, that there seems to be a need or an intention to build it on open infrastructure. How important do you think it is to use that as part of the solution?
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity. I think that's the way I think about it. So if you go back in time, like the early days of the internet, a lot of the infrastructure was often built on Sun Solaris, for example. Windows NT was still a big player until Linux got more mature. So Linux is well governed. It's owned by everyone and by no one at the same time, and that generated an enormous push in innovation. I think the same will happen for the clouds with Kubernetes. So it's important, but I think it's more interesting to look at it as an opportunity to reclaim some of the territory. From the perspective of saying, yeah, like the European community, but also Africa, for example, or Latin America.
And in terms, I mean, apart from the technology aspect of these clouds, I'm thinking there may well be, I think you referred to it earlier, economic and just more generally societal benefits.
Yeah.
Are you able to sort of quantify those in any way?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think if you share knowledge, so if you believe in like open source philosophy, and if you share the knowledge, generally your cost of doing business is lower. So it's immensely expensive to rebuild an AWS. It is way cheaper to start with the Kubernetes infrastructure, because other people have already done it and they shared how to do it. So if things can get like an order of magnitude cheaper, you will have an incredible incentive to move away, and that money is freed up and is being put to use in other things because it's not going anywhere. So what I think will happen is that so where the business model with a public cloud like AWS or Azure, their business model is commodity services, relatively expensive, and then value added services, relatively cheap. While at this moment they're so big, most of their investment, most of their innovation goes into building value added services. I think if you look at Kubernetes, these value added services will be so like the work being done there will be done by the software producers instead of the public clouds. So if you take, for example, Elastic will build an operator, a Kubernetes operator, that we as Aknostic can use for our customers. And there you see that the business model will change. So you have different revenue streams, and then you have price pressure on your commodities. And that's interesting, I think, for the industry, because then you can you can choose and you can pick your own consultancy. For example, if you want to do Postgres, you have, instead of paying an expensive like RDS instance, you can for example, look at Enterprise DB to get more of a consultancy approach to scaling your database on top of your own infrastructure.
Okay, and I'm also wondering on the environmental angle. I know that, again, the big cloud providers make great play about the fact that they use wind and solar and stuff, so they obviously have green sort of credentials. But do you think there's an opportunity for regional clouds to sort of steal a march when it comes to environment, or at least match those public cloud providers on the sort of sustainability side?
Yeah, I think the sustainability is interesting. I think so what we want to do, so we didn't get into the we yet, but we Clouds of Europe want to do is to show what it means to be transparent. So we want to work with our partners, data center companies, and we want to really show where the emissions come from. So we want to account for everything from concrete to energy so everything. So once we set transparency as the de facto standard, then I think you have you have a way to compare each other. Like right now, you don't know if Azure is completely accurate in their reporting, for example, because they also I think they still use, for example, I'm looking for the English term, but they still use so they're still used to offset their operation, for example. Well, if you show what is going on, then you can really compare these two. I think that's the most important. And then, because if we forge, so we is again, like, I don't know, the society, if we forge in this way transparency, then I think the big cloud providers have a huge incentive to innovate, and they will also share. share what they're doing to improve that particular. So in these particular in this particular area. So if you have transparency, then I believe that there's two things that you need to be to utilize your resources at an optimum. And one is utilization up. Well, there the big cloud providers have a big advantage because they already have that scale. The other one is like the lifespan of your physical resources. And there's at this moment, there's really no reason that we don't use servers of 10 years ago or 7 years ago. There's absolutely no reason. Most software can run on these kinds of resources. So it just makes a lot of sense to look at look at an economic dynamic where it is encouraged to use these resources for 10, 15, 20 years. And then you are way more environmentally conscious. But that will only show if you have the transparency.
Okay, and you mentioned in your answer that I think Clouds for Europe. So, and I know yourselves are involved. So Clouds for Europe, or the European Cloud, is this a recognized project, if you like, that someone's in control of and trying to roll out? Is it, dare I say, an idea and various people, perhaps, I won't say randomly, but not completely organized, working towards? What is the idea behind this European Cloud? And yeah, I say, have you got the buy-in of governments, organizations, business, or are we still too early? Just, yeah, some background on the idea.
Yeah, so I think the European Cloud, for me, is a concept. So I think the European Cloud is a choice for a standard, and we choose for Kubernetes, and then it's encouraged to adopt that standard and make it bigger. So if we would do that, so if we as a European community would make that choice, then we have the ability to direct funding, for example, to the particular areas that are important to Europe. And that's an interesting thing, because I know that they're looking for a way to deploy, to deploy their subsidies. But it's very difficult to make a choice exactly what you are going to do that. So the European Cloud is everything European running Kubernetes. But that is for me. So whatever someone else makes of it. But I think we should just make like a leap of faith, say Kubernetes is the next big thing. Let's adopt Kubernetes and build cloud capabilities on top of that open standard. Clouds of Europe is an initiative from Aknostic and a number of co-founders, 4 other co-founders. And we want to build, or we want to show what a regional sustainable Kubernetes as a service is. So a regional sustainable cloud. A regional is like, we are looking at regions like Rotterdam, Eindhoven, Ghent, Düsseldorf. So we are looking for local communities that are interested in local cloud alternatives for the public clouds. And sustainable for us means transparency. So the partners that we use, we need them to fully disclose their operation in terms of sustainability. So we can bring that information back and we can report on it to the people that can do the most with that, and that's the developers. So for us, sustainability means giving developers the tools to make the choices on how to serve the business more sustainably.
And in terms of how you roll that, you've mentioned various, it sounds like city-based local or regional clouds, but is it possible that existing cloud providers within Europe, there are some reasonably large companies already I guess, doing business with them. Can they, how do you envisage the rolling out of this? Does everyone have to start from scratch and roll it out, as you say, with Kubernetes, etc., or can you potentially absorb existing cloud providers who sign up to the basic ideas that you are promoting.
Yeah, we would. So we are still looking at where. So this is the way we think this will work is to make it a successful commercial company. So, but if we are able to attract customers and create significant demand, we can look at alternative business models. For example, people offering Kubernetes, and once it complies with what we think is Kubernetes, they can offer their resources through, say, the Clouds of Europe gateway or whatever you call it. So that's what we would like to do, but we would first have to earn that privilege. And I think at this moment, like there's many companies looking at this, and everyone is of course trying to like race to being number one again, which is not something I think is extremely interesting. It is not, doesn't really help. But I think for us, for Clouds of Europe, we want to build something that is an alternative to the public cloud, and we want to show what sustainability means. And if we build that framework, and if people want to join, that is great. And then we need to figure out what works for both parties. But it's very early for that.
And is the plan to make it an official EU project? Are you talking to EU level to try and get it adopted as something, and therefore once you get the, if you like, the might of that organizer behind you, it will roll out more easily and widely, or are you confident that independent of them you can achieve what you want to, but if they join in, it would be nice to have? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, so we won so with a number of so with like the initial consortium to start this project, we won a local or a provincial grant from the provincie Noord-Holland, so the province of Noord-Holland. So that is really big encouragement, and there you also see that the regional sustainable angle is what they understand. The cloud thing is still like magical. It's a bit of a black box. So we already do have backing there. We have the support of the Dutch Data Center Association. So from what I understand, is one of the reasons why they find this interesting is that the distance between like an infrastructure provider and a software developer is so big, it's very difficult to overcome. So they're trying to get software knowledge in their community to see what direction to take. So that's not a government body, but it's still an interesting consortium of companies. And we have very close ties to the SDIA, which is a European initiative to push the thinking towards how to do this. So there are several things that we are now trying to achieve. So the German government is very interested in this, in the regional sustainability angle. So they're looking for how they can fund some particular things that we do. For example, the reporting to software developers. I am reluctant to join the bigger efforts. And I don't want to, like, I think everyone's intentions, or most people's intentions, are probably fine. But I think if you have a lot of money at this moment, if you don't have the creativity to think of something else, then you will end up building what's already there. So we are looking at building an AWS, like a European AWS. Well, I don't think that I find, so personally, I find that a waste of my time. It's already been done. But it also doesn't make sense, because you have, so you start the race from the back of the pack, and there's no way that you can overtake them anymore because you're doing exactly the same, and they have like a 10,000 person company, and it doesn't really make sense. So you need to look for something long-term program where you can reinvent or reimagine what this means from an infrastructural perspective, and that's why I think Kubernetes is interesting. And there I think we have a shot.
And more generally, it seems that the idea of a European cloud is mirroring. There's been recent hiatus, for example, in the semiconductor industry. The US have obviously done we've got the European Chips Act. I mean, could you envisage a time when we have the European Cloud Act, for example, because more and more countries, or certainly regions, want to be guaranteeing self-sufficiency, whether it's energy resources is obviously in the headlines, but also IT self-sufficiency, whether it's chips or actual cloud infrastructure. Do you think that's a likely path, or is it just a temporary knee-jerk reaction to geopolitics, and once that all calms down, everyone go, well, I don't know what the fuss was all about? But
I find it a very interesting question, because we also, as a European Union, but also the US, we subsidize agriculture heavily to be self-sustainable. We make sure, like most countries, at least in Europe, make sure that their basic infrastructure needs is either well regulated or government activities. So like water or rail, for example. So there is something to say that to try to regulate this into a commodity service like energy or water. That I think the argument there is strong. However, if we if you look at Linux, which is also like a public good at this moment, that is unregulated in itself. So it's self-regulating. So that model, the governance model of open source, the way the Linux Foundation has developed over the last 25 years or something, also seems to work because they are left alone by the larger governmental institutions. So they managed to find a way to together to do a decent job of building some very important foundational technology.
Okay, and just before we finish, yourselves, Aknostic, we haven't heard much about that. So what is your role in this particular project? And then perhaps just a bit more background on you as a company. What other projects do you sort of typical work patterns you get up to?
Yeah, so so Aknostic started as 9apps about 11 years ago, and we were an AWS consultancy, and we had a particular idea of how to do this, and we wrote a number of books. So we, the co-founders, we wrote a number of books on how to build cloud infrastructures for the publisher O'Reilly. So we did it for a number of years. Then the founders went on to do another startup. Now half the founding team is back. And if you look at how the world is now changing, we see that we as a company, we need to reinvent ourselves as well. So we have chosen Kubernetes as like the standard for us to do our work, and we now do a lot of Kubernetes work on top of AWS, which is basically where we started. So we have our biggest and longest customer is Sanoma Learning. It's an educational publisher. We built they call it these days, they call it their like a development platform. So we build their development platform, and if that doesn't work, we wake up at night to make sure it works again. So we support their developers, their development teams and product owners with that infrastructure from their perspective. And we are now trying to figure out how this transition will be from public cloud to Kubernetes as like a principal cloud standard with our customers. So there is definitely an interest in like regaining control and having the choice where to run your stuff, especially since we are like in education. There's just a very like the requirement is almost there. It is in some areas it's already there, but the requirement is almost there to go fully European, for example, with your student information. So there is policy pressure or regulatory pressure there that is helping us drive this investigation. But we see it's early. So in order to generate like demand, we joined this Clouds of Europe, or we basically co-founded this Clouds of Europe project to be there early and to have conversations with our customers on how their cloud future will look. So we know how this works, and we can have a strategic conversation with our customers on where they want to go to and what they want to run where and why they want to run stuff where and which software components to choose and why. So that's why we put a lot of effort into this. At this moment, we are nearing 20 people. So we grew. So we like a year and a half ago we were 10 people. Now we are 20. So we are growing pretty fast. We also try to figure out what sustainability is for our work and with our customers. So you see a lot of ESG type directives from Europe. So they will need to do this. And we try to help them there, but also try to have that information be like not just reporting, but also influence the architectural choices that they make in their software work. And we are looking for. So we tend to be able to wake up better at night if we do something meaningful. So the customers we're looking for. So we have an educational publisher. We have Consumentenbond, which is a consumer protection institute in Holland. And we're talking to companies in agriculture, for example. So we are really looking for. As a team, we're looking for meaningful work. It's just nice to go home and to be happy with what you did.
Okay, and maybe just finally, quickly back to Clouds for Europe. Is there any time frame as to any goals along a roadmap as to by what date you would like to have a set? I know it's quite a large undertaking, but if you don't have any objectives, then it's possibly more difficult to get anywhere. So just any time frame, what you'd like to achieve by when, or if you could share. Yeah,
this is always one of the scariest things to do, of course. But we have our eyes set on October. In October is the Green Data Center conference in Holland, and it's quite a European affair. We have been invited to tell the story. So what we want to, so we picked that date to build up 2 regions, and we are looking at Rotterdam, and then there's a second region. It can be a specialty region like a machine learning AI region, for example, in Norway, in the north of Norway, in Kristiansand. It's a difficult name. I always forget Kristiansand. And then we want to. So we see this product in 3 stages. We start with just Kubernetes clusters. Then we have something we call virtual private cloud, which is your own digitally isolated cluster of clusters. That's how you can look at it. And then the third product is private cloud, which is fully isolated up until the network layer. And we want to launch with an MVP, with the minimum viable product for the first phase of this undertaking. so that's in October. We have set ourselves the goal of acquiring 2 customers with like not corporate customers, but a bit like, not, I don't want to say startup, but with like smaller organizations who are whose choice it would be to run on this initial cloud setup. So they need 2 or 3 clusters, for example, and they don't have the hard requirement of having full isolation. We want to find 2 customers that are interested in either the virtual private or the private cloud and want to help us, so kind of launching, or like alpha customers that can help us shape these products. And we want to find a number of partners. And partners can range from consultancies like Aknostic, so who help their customers onto the cloud, but also software developers like Elastic, I already mentioned, Enterprise DB, I already mentioned. So companies that their business is to build the software components, and we want to find a number of partners there that are interested in developing revenue streams on a cloud model like this. So that's in October. So it's already a mouthful, but yeah.
Okay. No, that's fascinating, and I wish you good luck, and it'd be great to catch up with you maybe in just before or after that event in October, see what's been achieved. And but at least for now, I really appreciate your time. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
My pleasure.